Fouke monsters is a term I like to use when it comes to certain legends. They tend to be centered around one area and have an air to them that's rural, country, and unique. The Fouke Monster, or should I say Fouke Monster, featured in this episode of Mytheries is most assuredly that. The cousin of the Bigfoot legend, the Fouke Monster has been the subject of films and sightings for over 100 years. He's stinky, he's sneaky, and he's the stuff of drive-in legend. Prepare to get swampy while we delve into that Legend of Boggy Creek, the Fouke Monster. The Fouke Monster has had reported sightings for over a century, some stating that the first encounters were back in the 1880s. The creature is considered one of the cryptids known as a skunk ape. These are part of the Sasquatch families, including Yetis and Bigfoots. Skunk apes earn the title due to the smell that carries around with them. They stink, and the smell is similar to rotten eggs. Skunk apes, though, are known for being found, or at least encountered, in the southern and southeastern states. Florida, Arkansas, and Texas are all known sighting states. Many skeptics consider the sightings of the tall, shaggy, dark-haired covered creature as bear encounters, but once you hear the descriptions of them, you tend to think, maybe there's more to this than Yogi and Boo Boo. The Fouke Monster really came to the wider public notice in the early 70s after an encounter with a couple named Bob and Elizabeth Ford. In 1971, the creature attacked their home, reaching through a window and trying to grab Elizabeth while she was in their living room. Bob and his brother Don managed to run the creature off, actually firing weapons at the running beast, but apparently not hitting it. This was after days of weird activity around the home. Bob returned back to the house and was attacked by the creature, who grabbed him by the shoulder. Bob managed to get away and ran to the home, not even stopping to open the front door and crashing through it. He was taken to the hospital and treated. In the morning, when the area was investigated, there was no blood found, and there was damage and claw marks to the house, as well as 3-toed footprints on the ground. The Fords had only lived in the house around a week when the attack happened. They moved out pretty quickly. After that, there were more occurrences and sightings, including the creature running across a highway. 3-toed footprints were found in fields, and local press started picking up the story, naming the creature the Fouke Monster. As things progressed, hunters decided to take a crack at finding the creature. And you can imagine how the local authorities felt about having gun-toting hunters looking around for a monster that was around the same height, shape, and walked like a man. What could possibly go wrong? They quickly initiated a no-gun policy. The Fouke Monster didn't really make its presence known across the country, and eventually the world, until a man named Charlie Pierce made a low-budget film. Pierce worked on a television station locally as a weatherman and children's TV host. He heard the stories about the Fouke Monster and fell in love with the tales coming out of Fouke. While Pierce might not be a complete believer, he knew a good story when he heard one. Pierce decided this would be the perfect fodder for a movie, and so he went and got a chunk of his $160,000 budget from Ledwell & Sons. He had Earl E. Smith take all of the eyewitness stories and put them together into a screenplay. Pierce went to Fouke and hired some kids from the local high school to be the film crew. He then got many of the locals who had experienced the encounters to play themselves in the film, along with residents he thought would look good in the movie to bring authenticity. Pierce even sang the theme song for the movie. After filming was done, Pierce couldn't find a distributor for the film, so he rented out a closed movie theater in Texarkana for a week, determined for someone to see it. The lines stretched down the street, and the film made $55,000 in a month. Pierce wound up getting a massive payday from the film, and it was picked up by American International Pictures, quickly becoming a massive drive-in hit. That $160,000 investment wound up making $25 million in 1972. Joe Bob Briggs would showcase the film on the last drive-in, touting the drive-in spirit of Pierce, and also having noted cryptozoologist Lyle Blackburn, the author of a number of books on the Fouke Monster, on as a guest. The Legend of Boggy Creek brought all kinds of attention to Fouke. The reason the film is such an important part of the history of the creature is that it manages to compile a number of actual encounters, and it does so in a documentary style, even though it's a scripted film. It uses actual locations and people from Fouke, which Pierce was right, adds to the authenticity of the movie. This made it great fodder for the drive-in, as you didn't know whether to believe what was being told to you or not, much like the actual legend, naturally. In 1977, Return to Boggy Creek was made with no involvement from Charles Pierce, and really nothing like the first film. It was a completely fictionalized motion picture that starred Don Wells from Gilligan's Island and Dana Plato from Different Strokes. This film doesn't show the creature as attacking anyone, really. The monster here is heroic and saves the lives of 3 children trapped in a hurricane by pulling their boat to safety. Pierce wouldn't return to Boggy Creek himself until 1985 with Boggy Creek 2 and The Legend Continues. Again, this wasn't a documentary-style production, and Pierce not only starred this time, but wrote and directed it, including having his son Chuck Pierce Jr. co-star. The film was showcased on Mystery Science Theater 3000, and that's really all you need to know. There were 2 other Boggy Creek set films released that had no connection to Pierce, but involved the monster. Boggy Creek: The Legend is True was a direct-to-video horror film which moves Boggy Creek from Arkansas to Texas, and has the creature murdering a group of friends who are out camping. Legacy of Boggy Creek follows along the lines of the original film, doing things in a documentary style on a shoestring budget. Boggy Creek Monster was released in 2016 and features Lyle Blackburn, Joe Bob's guest for the Boggy Creek episode, as the narrator and researcher. This entry into the Boggy Creek films takes the subject far more seriously and is a documentary. None of these films has had the impact and the reach of Pierce's first work, which captured the imaginations of filmgoers with an odd mix of sincerity and a style that feels like an episode of In Search Of. Sightings of the creature have dwindled over the years, but that hasn't stopped Fouke from taking full advantage of the city and the monster's notoriety. FoukeMonster.net had a reported log of sightings with some recent entries as of this year. The site lists separate encounters all the way back to 1908. It's ran by Lyle Blackburn and is packed with tons of information about the monster in the town. Part of the website includes information about Fouke's Monster Mart, which at one time was a local mini-mart and which has now become a focal point for the town's monster legend. Outside, guests are greeted by a giant version of the creature, and inside, next to the sodas and pizza and other items, is memorabilia and items from the Fouke monster's history. This includes casts of footprints and more. Fouke, much like Point Pleasant in West Virginia with the Mothman, has truly embraced and welcomed their monster. Earlier this year, when the local police patrol car needed replaced, they decided to emblazon the image of the monster's iconic profile on the vehicle. An annual festival, the Fouke Monster Festival, is held in Fouke. The event brings together experts on the legend, cryptozoologists, and actors from the original film. Charles Pierce's daughter attended the last event held in 2019. The proceeds from the festival go towards Fouke's schools, with the next scheduled for 2022. There's never been any sort of a certifiable proof of the Fouke monster. There are local officials who unequivocally state that they don't believe the creature to be real. As with many of our subjects, the myth seems to be stronger than reality when it comes to the legend of Boggy Creek. But I always come back to the history and the number of encounters and how they are all so similar, even from the turn of the century. Fouke has a lot of swampy, wooded areas. I grew up in a place that at night was as pitch black as a cave because there was nothing around you but the woods and the sky. It's in those times you could believe a creature like the Fouke monster could exist, that a creature that's a brother to Bigfoot could be out there and still thriving. It's never truly completely quiet. You wouldn't want to be caught out there without a flashlight or worse, alone, because you might not be. Thank you for watching our show. If you like what you see, please subscribe to our Joe Blow Videos channel. Tell your friends who like this sort of content and turn on the bell to receive notifications for all of our latest videos. We're an independent company and we appreciate all of your support.